Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning.
Hello, welcome to Last Library on the Left. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Sadina. We're a horror review and discussion podcast where we talk about horror in books, movies, and other formats, why we seek it out, and why we need it in our lives.
And today we're going to change it up a bit. We are discussing an infographic that I shared with Sadina a while before we started the podcast. I think when we were in the inception mode of podcast.
Yeah, still kind of like throwing ideas around still for the most part.
So this infographic is called The Psychology of Horror, and we will have posted it on release day so you can see it. And it's really cool. It covers 3 different types of how you consume horror and how you relate to horror in different ways. So we're going to do this in 2 parts. The first part, which is today's episode, we will cover horror movie allure and types of horror watching. And then next week, we will cover 8 theories regarding the consumption of horror. So I guess before we get started, I will give out a couple of research things. So when I was looking up research, I found out that Dr. Glenn Walters came up with the 3 factors of horror movie allure in 2004 in a publication in the Journal of Media Psychology. And the types of horror watching was research done by Dr. Deirdre Johnston in 1995, where she categorized the types of horror watching, and that's what we'll be discussing today. So, horror movie allure. Listen. The 3 types are tension, which is mystery suspense. The second one is relevance, and it's relevant to you, the viewer. And 3 is unrealism. And what I found when I was researching it, Dr. Glenn Walters, in his journal, which I couldn't get access to.
Even through the library?
No, wow. I couldn't find it through the library. But I did find, I think there was an article in psychology.com that referenced his research. And so when he was talking about unrealism, which is the one that I relate to the most, there was a supportive study done by Dr. Haight, Macaulay, and Rosen in 1994. They had graphic videos shown to students. And the videos were like fecal matter and vomit, and then someone's skull being open, a bunch of really, really graphic things. And what they wanted to do was see what the students, how they would react to it, right? Most of the students kind of stopped it close to the middle towards the end. Some watched it throughout and then said like, yeah, I wouldn't watch that again. That was just too gruesome. But the same students are the same ones that would pay to watch gore horror. So what their conclusions based off of that study was that horror films give viewers a sense of control by placing a psychological distance between them and what's happening on screen, which is how I relate to unrealism. It's fake, obviously fake, right? So that's why I go to view horror.
Well, and it's the biggest difference between us.
Yeah.
Because I like tension and relevance, although I find relevance to be scarier.
Relevance is very scary. Very scary.
Yeah. The relevance, we were talking earlier about American Horror Story, and while Coven is my favorite season of all time, Hotel is very sexy in a very strange way, which we'll talk more about. My weird
Your
issues.
definition of sexy.
Yes, y'all. One of the reasons why we're doing the infographic and the chapter and stuff after this and boundaries is because we're reading all the books for our 31 Days of Horror right now, and we're trying to keep that kind of in our heads.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have a lot to discuss in a very short time. With me.
How we're gonna fit these 31 Days of Horrors into like 10-15 minute episodes, I don't know.
Yeah, well, especially with that one book.
I know.
Because I'm still trying to figure out how to not ramble about it. Anyway.
Yeah.
All of that being said, out of all the American Horror Story, the one that actually frightens me the most is Cult. It felt so true. It felt like a documentary. I have done very little listening to anything on QAnon outside of the 3-part episode that M. Schultz did.
Yes.
And That's Why We Drink. Highly recommend it. Do not binge all 3 episodes back to back. It's rough. I did it as they came out, and even that was really hard.
Yeah.
But now there's a QAnon documentary on HBO, and I can't watch it. It's too much.
I don't think I will watch it. So when Em covered it, they were talking about, you know, the inception of it. And I remember thinking, like, yeah, like, I remember seeing that campaign and thinking, I agree with that. And then as it snowballed into something completely different, I was like,
oh, the Protect Our Children?
Yeah. I just remember thinking, like, wow, you know, something that we should all, you know, think about just goes into, if you don't think something, oh, you don't care about the kids. Well, no, I care about the kids.
Well, and I think that was the insidious part about it too, because when I saw that trending the first time, I remember initially being very skeptical because I wasn't seeing it trend with actual activist groups who do work towards protecting children and helping stop sex trafficking and things like that. I was seeing it on like stay-at-home mom sites and all these Pinterest boards, and I was like, well, I can't trust these people. Who are these people?
It wasn't a lot of my mom group on Facebook, and these are from the same moms that if they saw me on the street and I needed help, they wouldn't help me. These are the same moms.
Or they think that you're the nanny of your own child.
Yes. So why would I trust anything they had to say?
Right. And the more I saw it snowball, but snowball outside of the realm of the actual help groups, the more and more I began to distrust it. Yeah. And then it turned out that you really should distrust it. Didn't Twitter have to ban the hashtag? Yeah. Because it was a whole mess. So relevance horror, for me, the cult, Un-American Horror Story, QAnon, all of it, it's good, but I can only consume it once a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to consume. It's a lot for me mentally to handle, and I don't know that I'm ready to handle any more than what I handled with the 3-parter. Yes. It's a lot.
And the idea that there's that statistic that everyone has walked by a killer at least once. And it's like, I probably share an apartment complex with at least one QAnon believer, and that scares the complete crap out of me. Yeah. Because all I can think is like, they're insane. Yeah. They're bonkers. I can't trust anything. It's so, and I'm sorry if that was offensive to anybody, but that's horror to me, relevance horror. Yeah. Tension horror is probably my favorite type of horror, especially if it has a psychological bent to it. I love psychological horror. Messing up people's heads is the best.
I'm not about that life. We realized while we were in between Stephen King and 31 Days, I had a mental break where I couldn't consume any horror for a minute there. And I told Sadina I didn't realize that we consumed 2 different types of horror, where I use it for escape. So I want unrealistic. I want Freddy Krueger. I want Michael Myers. I want Jason. These guys that even though you kill them dead, they come back. That's so fake to me. I need that kind of horror. And the psychological horror, it really messes with me. But I am starting to really enjoy it. I'm starting to find the psychological horror that I like and the ones that are real boundaries for me. Okay. That's really nice because I'm really getting some good horror out of the 31 Days. I'm really excited for 31 Days.
Okay, because I'm starting to feel a little guilty because I did generate a lot of our content for 31 Days. And when Jennifer was first like, there's hardly anything here that would be something I would consume on a natural basis. And I was like, man, I either own half this list or it's things I intended to own anyway. And I'm using it as an excuse to read it. I was like, man, this is so messed up that I'm kind of like forcing.
No, you're good. Okay. We will get into 80s slasher one day and we'll have switch places.
Okay. Oh, that could be the next 31 Days.
No. Let's no. I don't want to do 31 days of it. Oh. It's a lot of corny shit.
Yes, yeah. So. I think that's the thing that I don't like about some of the gore ones. Because there's 2 types of gore, right? Yeah. There's the gore that there's too much blood spray. Yeah. And it's like so cheesy and it's very clearly...
It doesn't look like blood. It looks like pomegranate juice or something, right?
But also it appears as if even in the cinematography, they did not mean to take it seriously.
Yeah.
So they're selling it to you as this kind of inside joke. Yeah. And then there's the gore that is just, but what if this was real and also maybe I made a snuff film and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I don't want either.
Right, yeah. See, for me, tension is a fine balance between mystery and suspense and gore. And I'm trying to think of my all-time favorite tension movie.
Oh, What Lies Beneath.
Oh, that was a good one.
Out of the horror movies that you go thinking maybe she's just unhinged through most of it and overreacting, and then at the end it is a horror movie, and you're like, oh no. Everything was always terrible.
Yeah. See, for me, I think it's Haunting of Hill House Netflix series. Because that one was really good with suspense and some mystery, finding out all the ghosts in the background.
Well, and the way that they told that story too.
Yeah, that one was a good tension builder for me. I really liked that one. If I had to name one, that would probably be it for me. But for me, I don't really follow too much tension. I think I told you I like to be guided with the story. I like the horror to kind of lead the way, and I'll just follow along.
I want there to be a puzzle to solve at the end.
Yeah, it depends. It really depends. Because sometimes when we're talking about something, I'm like, oh yeah, I was trying to figure that out. But I guess it just depends on my mood, what I'm consuming.
You know what is another good tension one? Hide and Seek.
Yes! That was another
a
good one.
tension one.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I rewatched it recently and it was terrible, but it was still good on the tension.
Yeah.
Even knowing what to go back and look for.
Yeah.
That was really good.
That was a good one. Ooh, I want to watch that one again.
Right?
Oh my god. Oh, okay, now I want to start watching Lucifer, so I need to free up my TV time so I can watch Lucifer because I've never watched it. Relevance. So for Relevance, I only... How do I put this? I very rarely relate to characters because they're mostly white characters. So
fair.
when it's some person of color, often I relate to them, but they're usually the first ones to go. So I don't really care to relate to them. But there's always a nerd or an outcast, and I've always been a nerd or an outcast. So I always relate to them. So anytime I'm watching a horror and there's the outcast person, I'm like, oh, that's me if I was in a horror movie. But like I said, my number one allure is unrealism. It's my escape from everyday life. It's how I consume horror. I always look for the fake stuff. But outside of horror, I also use unrealism in other genres.
Really?
In romance, I look for historical romances that have like the wallflower or like the Hellion girl that doesn't listen to anybody and she gets the Duke.
Wait, you mean Hellion?
Hellion. Whatever.
Okay. I was like, Hellion?
Hellion.
What's a Hellion?
Just think Hellion. Yes, it makes more sense. Listen, guys, it's been a rough weekend. But yes, like those are the types of romances I like to read because those are just so far-fetched because it's usually they've been paired since they were born, usually, you know, royalty. So it's very rare that a wallflower will come and get the guy. And that's it for the allure unless you want to add anything.
Well, I have nothing to contribute to the romance other than like what we'll talk about for 31 Years of Horror.
I can't wait for that.
Girl, it's a whole
It's
thing.
a whole situation.
Listen, it's gonna be hard to not talk about that every day of my life for the rest of my life. Anyway. Also, thank you to my friend Sarah for listening to me just kind of like ramble on about it, who is also now gonna buy the book because yeah, she got it. But unrealism, I'm not ever really into unrealism, especially if it's something that I know I myself will never come into contact with. We were talking about space horror, like Alien is good, but I like it more for a sci-fi movie than a horror movie because space travel is more realistic in my head than, I mean, I do believe that aliens are out there too. Or it just like, it was so far-fetched for me. And then movies like The Meg, where it's the megalodon down in the Mariana Trench. I know I'm never going into the Mariana Trench, so I'm not afraid. I do find it a little scary to think that maybe the Meg is still down there living its best life, but they're too far removed for me. The book The Swarm by Frank Schatzing is like an eco-horror book, and it's really, really good. There's this one page that, to paraphrase, it basically says the eastern seaboard fell into the ocean, and I was like, oh my god. Just so intense. But I know that that's not likely to happen in my time, so pretty removed from me. So yeah, the tension, I want to solve a puzzle, and the relevance, I can only consume a little bit a year because I tend to spiral out and look for shadows and everything.
You sure. If Affinity was any clue, you searched the hell out of Affinity for some stuff.
Yes, I really let things get in my head, and I'm like, that's gonna happen. Just run away and completely bug out over it. Like the crazy person I am.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. We have our moments.
Yeah. But I'm so easy to go from like fairly calm and cool-headed and logical to like off the edge and completely unstable and everything is a conspiracy. Like, okay, the movie Wag the Dog, it scares me and it's not a horror movie. It's just political satire. After I watched it for the first time, I remember I was so shook for like weeks.
I never watched it.
Girl, I was so shook for weeks. I couldn't trust anybody. I was like, everybody has a motive and everybody is smarter than me and everybody is doing something ulterior. Like everything is corrupt and evil. Just like completely unhinged over a political comedy. Like,
that is so funny. Oh my gosh.
Is it though? Or is it really sad?
It's funny because it made an impression on you. Not the impression they probably wanted.
No. Girl, I bought the movie thinking I would go back and watch it again one day. I have yet to rewatch it because I am still like, I don't think I'd recover.
Yeah.
Like I'm a little too.
Oh my God. I've never watched it. I have no clue what it's about.
It's very good.
Yeah.
It was not meant to be horror and I absolutely was horrified. So sad.
Well, like you really make me want to watch this movie now.
It was really good. It was. But there's a line in there and it's the tagline to Wag the Dog, the name of the movie. Mm-hmm. And when they use it to justify their political machinations, I remember kind of pausing it and being like, everything I think about the world is a lie and it's all corrupt and everyone is controlling everything. I think I watched around the time of 9/11 and tapping phones and all this other stuff, and I was like, I can't breathe without someone trying to put me on a list somewhere.
I mean, I can understand it because a Truman Show sort of did that to me, because I was like, wait a minute, am I in a simulation?
So you used to take those trips to Canada. Did you ever try staying awake the entire trip to make sure that you weren't? Because remember they would drug him and take him to the fake?
Yeah.
See, that's also where I become unhinged over Relevance.
Yeah.
Because I saw the Truman Show, I saw their fake vacation photos.
Yeah.
And I was like, but did I ever actually live in Tennessee? Is Tennessee the same thing as Texas? I immediately unraveled.
I unravel. Listen, okay, I'm gonna get really embarrassing here.
Oh, please join me.
So there's a movie called The Never-Ending Story.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an 80s movie. In the movie, there's this kid named Atreyu, and he's taking his horse down the quicksand, and the quicksand feeds off of your fear, and the horse ends up staying there, and I thought quicksand was a much bigger deal in real life because of The Never-Ending Story. Not only that, there's something called the nothing, and when it comes through like a storm. So anytime I see dark clouds, I'm like, oh crap, it's the nothing that's coming to get us. And it's just very irrational. But every now and again it pops into my head, and I said it one day at work, I was like, oh look, it's the nothing. And they're like,
oh, yeah,
what?
That would make me very concerned for you.
They were like, what? And I was like, don't worry, I'm just weird. So the nothing still sticks with me, and I don't know that it was meant to. I really thought of the nothing during, was it Hurricane Rita? No, it was Hurricane...
Was it Allison? Because it sat on top of us for like 5 days.
It had to be Allison, because I graduated that year of Allison. And my dad went outside in the middle of the night. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're just... Oh my God. And I remember thinking like, dude, come back inside. And I remember thinking, the nothing is gonna get you. So every now and again, I get very irrational.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
There's a combination of my night terrors and my belief that the world is in some way not what I think it is, not what I'm perceiving it as, which is why relevance horror like really freaks me out. Mm-hmm. Okay, so story time. My best friend Becca lived down the street from our high school, and we were over there all the time. And there was one time when she was coming back from college. So she went to college, I didn't, when we first graduated. And she was home for the first time back from college, and I just got off work. It was really late, and I was going to go by her place and see her. So I go to the house that we always drove to, and all the lights were off, which was weird. Like even like the light over the garage wasn't on. And I remember sitting there thinking like, that's so weird. The house looks completely empty. And I kind of stepped back and looked at the house, and I was like, this is the house house. And I went up to the door and I like knocked. I didn't want to ring the doorbell and wake up her parents or get the dogs all riled up. And I knocked and kind of stepped back and all the lights stayed off and there were no dogs barking, which sometimes they would bark even to the knocking. And I was like, am I at the right house? And I kind of stepped back again. I was like, no, there's the bench and the swing and the plant. I remember all of this. And then I went, what if I never have been here before? What if it's one of my night terrors? What if this is one of those times where I'm confusing reality for the dream world? And I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, is Becca even real? And then the light came on in the hallway and she was at the door and I was like, oh no, it's okay. But like, in seconds, I was ready to throw away years of reality because the house was unresponsive.
Yeah. Like, is Becca even real? And then the light was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's okay.
Yeah, and then I kind of brushed it off like it wasn't a big deal. Yeah. But I must have had a look on my face because she asked me what was wrong. And I told her everything that happened. And she was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just a crazy person.
Right, yeah. I just create this whole scenario.
Yeah. I thought I imagined everything.
Oh my goodness.
So stupid.
That's so funny. And with that, we'll move on to the types of horror watching. Which, as I said before, was researched by Dr. Deidre Johnson and categorized into the 4 types. And the 4 types were linked to viewer response and the ability to identify with characters inside the film. So the 4 types are gore watching, thrill watching, independent watching, and problem watching. So based on this graphic, which weird, the gore watching has a heightened sense of sensation seeking and lowered empathy response.
Which makes sense to me.
That's
I would assume that if you're watching a slasher for that thrill, that your empathy has to be lower because you aren't empathizing with the victims.
Oh, I guess so, yeah. And so it also says that it males ID strongly with the killer.
So we've had this infographic in our shared drive for a few months now, and every time I looked at it, I thought it said, makes ID strongly with the killer, and I was like, that's a weird phrase. Like, why would it be written that way? It sounds weird. And then I looked at it today right before Jennifer came over, and I like zoomed into it. I was like, it says males ID strongly with the killer, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So gore watching for me is like, I would say the Saw series is a big gory set of movies, and after Saw came out, there was a whole series of gore movies that came out. Hostel, which I've never watched because I can watch some gore. I like the unrealistic gore of the 80s movies. You know that blood is fake.
Yeah, like the camp gore.
Yeah. So I can take those. Love the first Saw movie. It was fantastic. But I can't watch, well, you know what? I'm lying because there's this movie called The Collector. And
yeah, I was going to say The Collector is one of your favorite movies.
Oh my God, it's so good. And it is heavy on the gore.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what I'm thinking. Whoopsie.
We'll probably have to watch The Collector one day and do an episode on it to figure out what it is exactly you're getting out of it.
Yeah, because I mean, I love both of them. And like, even like the killer, like, I don't care for him. Like, whatever. I don't care for the people that are dying. I just,
lower empathy.
Yeah. I just love the movie, and I really need to rewatch it and be like, why? And even my sister, because we both love those movies, just love them. So yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch and be like, Jennifer, why are you watching this?
Or maybe you watched it in a time in your life where like that hit something different.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah. Maybe I had some aggression that I just needed to get out. I mean, there was a time. So so thrill watching is high on sensation seeking, high on empathy, and more identify with the victims. And for that, I put down, those are movies like Scream.
Yeah, I was thinking like Final Destination.
Yeah. God, don't let me watch no Final Destination now, okay?
Yeah, how many times do you like swerve to get out from behind someone specifically on the freeway?
Yeah. Anyone who's carrying any type of anything on an 18-wheeler, I'm not getting behind you.
Yeah, I got stuck behind some yard guy earlier today coming back home, and they had all this equipment. Yeah. But like in a separate trailer that wasn't, he didn't have any like roping or anything, and I was like, no.
I can already imagine the hitch coming off that connects the trailer to the truck, and no. No thank you.
Yeah. And they weren't even going, you know how like usually they go slower than the speed limit because they want everyone to go around them? Yeah. No, this guy was going the speed limit. No, I was like, bro, you need to respect us and slow down.
Yeah. You need to watch Final Destination, sir. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, this is the real reason you're supposed to drive slow. It was Final Destination and those like me who watched it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. So that's what I think of when I think of thrill watching. I think of those types of movies. So for independent watching, which is high on empathy and high positive effects of overcoming fears, I put down The Conjuring, but I couldn't think of one that I had watched where something great happened, like the killer died or something.
Yeah, I was thinking of like survival horror.
Oh,
like
that's a good one.
Was it called The Revenant?
I didn't watch The Revenant.
The Revenant?
But yeah, that's a good one. That's
or
a
the
good
one about the guy who got stuck in a canyon and he had to rip off his own arm or something.
Oh yeah, the 127 hours.
Yeah. Those are the ones I would think are the independent watching where you have high empathy. I mean, there's still tension building, but the overcoming that hurdle.
Yeah. I went immediately to demonic possession and I was like, because you feel sorry for those little kids. I don't know.
Which, by the way, I'm going to watch the third Conjuring soon. Em watched it. She said it was spooky, but I really can't wait to watch it. I know the story behind it.
I really want to watch the La Llorona one, but like, I just...
I think they took too many liberties with it, honestly. Okay. At least that version.
And problem watching is high on empathy and negative effect of feeling helpless, and for that I wrote Get Out and Lovecraft Country.
Yeah, Get Out. Or A Skeleton Key.
Yeah. Get Out did a real number on me. And recently, Hellfest, I just told you about it. Hellfest did a number on me because one, that's why I don't go to haunted houses, and two, the ending. Blech. So those are what I wrote as far as if you're trying to identify what those types of watching are. I personally do a little bit of gore watching, but again, like I said, it's mostly stuck in the past, and those are movies that I watched when I was younger. And I think for me, the reason why I like them is because one, it's definitely sensational as far as the emotions that are running through me, but I think it's just that nostalgia factor that I have. That's why I watch it. And like the newer horror that I watch that's gore, I don't get that high that other people might get.
I wonder what changed.
I think it's because it's so close to what could possibly be real.
Oh.
You know?
The camp factor got taken out.
Yeah. And I mean, I know when I used to watch horror, there were certain rules you had to follow, right?
Right.
Like you couldn't have sex, you couldn't show your boobs. And so here, you can be a virgin and still get killed. They don't stick to any sort of rules. It's just there are no rules.
Well, and a lot of the rules are swapped, especially the music rule.
Yeah.
As the music begins to hit its peak, that's when you know something's happening.
Yeah.
But they never do that anymore.
No, they don't.
It's always a red herring.
Dummies.
Well, because I was that kid who was kind of had my hands ready to like hide from the thing when the music peaked, and I can miss the thing. And now they do it all the time.
Yeah, I can't watch movies through my hands anymore, and that's really annoying.
Yeah.
So the gore watching, like, I don't really identify, but I had an ex who, and we'll talk more about him in the next episode because he's more relevant there, but he used to love the gore watching, mainly because he liked watching my reaction to it, because he enjoyed that I was scared. I mean,
little weird.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Because I didn't really look at the males I identify strongly with a killer. I was like, wait a minute, did I know one of those?
Yeah. I feel like the males identify with the killer in gore watching is probably one of the other reasons why I'm not a gore watcher. Because all of those statistics of, okay, maybe not quote unquote all men, but all women have been victimized.
Yeah.
And so all men are still a danger.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if that's why I'm not a fan of gore, because in my life, I could take just about any man in my life that is related, acquainted, however, and superimpose them into that movie.
Ooh.
And be like, I know their triggers. I know what would have put them in that place.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. Like, I just had to have a conversation with Ashley about, some shit happened on Dakota's birthday. And she was trying really hard not to be upset about, all she said on Facebook was the bad thing that happened on Dakota's birthday. And I was like, that fucker did not call his daughter on her birthday. And their divorce hearing is coming up. It's going to become this thing where Ashley's getting more and more anxious because she thinks that there is a plan behind the curtain that's going to come out and bite her, even though she's done everything right. And I was like, that's what people like him do. And people like his mother do. Yeah. Because that's what our brother did. Our brother, to this day, tells his people his side of the story. It makes me the bad guy. No matter all the terrible things that man did. This man threatened to burn down his mother's house. This man stalked me. This man stalked my bubby's house. This man put us through years of trauma and torture. But I'm the bad guy. Right. Anytime he tells the story. Yeah. I'm also the reason why his life has fallen to pieces, because I put out bad rumors about him or whatever. I didn't do shit. So So I was trying to explain to Ashley, I was like, that's just how men like that are. You're always going to be the villain, and you're going to have to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come to terms with you're his villain, but you're Dakota's hero.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I was like, that's just how it's going to have to be.
I know there are people that see me as a villain, and while I'm no saint, I do the very best that I can. I make mess ups like every other human being, but it's just a part of life. And I think the sooner she comes to terms with that, the better off she'll be mentally.
Yes. And and she's a gore watcher. So I wonder if that's also part of where her anxiety is coming from. It's because she's already put this man that she was married to, who like was the father of her child.
Yeah.
She may not be aware of it, but she may be
She would be placing him there.
in those positions in her mind.
Or even if she's not placing him there, I wonder if she's placing herself as one of the victims.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Probably.
You know, when I think about the first Saw movie and the one girl who got out and she was like grateful for the lesson he taught her, and I was just like, girl, like, no. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't have been put there in the first place. Right. So I wonder if she's at least identifying with one of the victims, which that's not good.
No, it's not, because she's genuinely convinced herself that even though everything is in her favor, according to experts, lawyers, people that have gone through the system already, that because he's cut communication since April, he's concocting some plan, and as a white male veteran, he will have the power in this situation, and she'll lose everything. Yeah. And that's a genuine fear.
Yeah, that scares me.
But I keep telling her, I was like, look, that's part of his power, is to put that thought in you.
Right, yeah.
And he knows
he
what he's doing.
hasn't had to say a word to put it in her either, so...
No. I think that's why I don't like watching gore movies. There's too many people like that in my life that I can be like, you're the bad guy, but you've made me look like the bad guy.
Yeah.
Or you've made me convinced that I'm the victim without even doing anything yet.
Right. I mean, solid reasoning for not watching gore and consuming gore, because that's crazy. Blech. Just all the gross.
I know, so many toxic men in my life. And in the periphery, too. And all the good dudes have either died or don't live anywhere here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I mean, I'm glad that you're here and that you're on my side, but also, could you be closer?
Right. Like, I just need a solid male to just be in my area, because we just need a solid male figure.
I just need like one on my side.
Yeah.
That I can call up who can be here in a hot second.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I know that everybody needs to live their lives, and I'm not owed anyone's royalties or whatever.
Yeah.
But
it is what it is.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that's why I don't like watching gore stuff.
I mean, it sounds legit.
And my brother, who did all those terrible things, he was a gore watcher.
Oh.
So he was this male that identifies as the killer, but for years told everybody that he was the good guy.
Of course.
Of course. He is the person they're talking about in
because
this
Jigsaw thought that he was doing the best for mankind. So, you know, whatever.
I mean, my brother told me one day when I actually had the balls to confront him, he was like, you just don't understand because you're a child. Like, okay.
Okay. I will roll my eyes to that one.
I'm not old, but I'm also not a child anymore.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for minimizing me.
Right. Also making it sound like I brought this upon myself, because I didn't understand how the adult world worked.
Alrighty, whatever. Just don't get me mad.
Girl, I could get you real mad. I still have all of the stuff that he typed out as threats to us. If you ever want to like just read something and be like, men are trash.
I mean, I already know.
True. But yeah, so no gore watching for Sadina.
Yeah. So next up is thrill watching, which that's the one I do the most of. I love a good thriller.
Ooh, like The Quiet Place.
Which I haven't watched.
Oh my god, you're killing me.
But they have the second one.
Yes.
So I'm gonna back to back.
Okay, make sure that when you watch the first one, that you are as isolated as possible.
Yes.
Because that atmosphere of that absolute quiet, you need to be immersed in.
I had a friend who, this is just a funny side note, and I can't remember who told me this because I've talked to so many people this past week. So if I forgot who it was, like, just let me know, but I'm gonna call you out. They were watching A Quiet Place and they didn't realize their volume wasn't on. Subtitles were going like, wow, this is really meant to be a quiet movie. And I almost peed my pants when I heard this. And I don't know who told me that. I can't remember. Like, it had to be someone from work because I only work.
Right.
But I don't know who it was from work.
That's hilarious. I mean, that's one way to get that atmosphere.
And so... And I don't think they realized it until halfway through.
Wow.
So,
yeah, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
You need like the ambient noise of the quiet.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That would be one of my 3 a.m. watches. Like every now and again I wake up at 3 a.m. and I have nothing to do and I can't go back to sleep, so I watch a movie. Yeah, so it'll be a 3 a.m. watch.
That's a good time.
But yeah, throat watching is what I normally do. And I want to say, like, I don't really relate to the victim so much, but if it's one of the, like, classic, stereotypical slasher films where there's a bunch of people and you're trying to figure out who's going to be the final girl and I'm usually like, okay, whoever knows the rules, that's the one I am, because I know the rules. I've watched these movies, I know, right? I would have survived Hellfest for damn sure. Because the minute the first person died, I wouldn't have been sitting there watching like, oh my god, they make it so real in this haunted house. I would have been out of there. But y'all watch Hellfest. It's so funny. It's so good. It's good. I don't like the ending, but it's good. Independent watching, which you said it was like...
I think it's 127 hours.
Yeah.
Like those like survivalist horror type things.
Yeah. I really liked 127 hours.
High positive effect of
overcoming fears. Yeah.
Then that would be something to like Gerald's Game.
Which I haven't seen.
Girl, I couldn't watch. No.
I know our friend T watched it.
I tried. I really did. And I was really excited.
Yeah.
And then it was absolutely a Stephen King story.
Ooh.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. You're not going to get me again, King.
No. Which that's a lot of him. That's a lot of him, that independent stuff. Overcoming fears, overcoming his fears and his like stuff.
His own way. Yeah.
Yeah, but no sir, no thank you.
Oh, maybe it's like Hush.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah. I just kept trying to think of movies that I watched where they like overcame fears. I'm like, I haven't watched any like that because usually the killer comes back at the very end, like, or they're just so far gone that it's a miracle that they're alive. They didn't overcome any fears. They just survived.
Yeah, they just survived. That's not the same.
Yeah. So independent watching, I don't know. I have no thoughts, whatever for it.
I think I probably have watched more of that than I realize. I would have to go through some stuff and figure out, because independent watching sounds more like a psychological.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially that psychological relief where that's the payoff of the movie. The payoff of the movie is to watch them do more than just survive.
Yeah. I mean, if I was to think of any of them, like, my mind keeps going to M. Night Shyamalan for some reason, and I'm like, but I don't know any of his movies that I felt like I overcame a fear, where I watched a character overcome
the Aliens
a fear.
One. That one called
Signs. That one messed me up for a long time, buddy.
I think Signs may be the closest one of Shyamalan stuff.
Yeah. When they had that lost footage of that birthday party and that alien was walking through, I tell you, I couldn't look out my windows for a long time. I was freaked out. And every now and again, guys, everyone knows I have a little kid. So she leaves her bottled waters like everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God. It stays. They're little things. They stay. I'm like, oh my God, my kid, like, please throw your bottled water.
I love that your child is accidentally your trigger a lot.
Yeah. She really is.
Especially shortly after we've talked about something already. You're gonna come home and she'll have them all over the floor.
Well, she did it yesterday and I was like, girl, like, come on, get the bottled waters out of here. And they all have just a little bit, like, about an inch of water. And if you watch Signs, you know that's enough water. But all the time, I'm just like, ooh, she really gets me. But yeah, that would be the only independent one, that I would probably relate to. And problem watching, that's a lot of what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
A lot of social issues and how they're overcoming these social issues. Did you hear that they're not bringing back Lovecraft?
Yeah, I saw that they got Misha Green's show Bible or something like that for season 2, and they rejected it based on that or something,
I
which
guess so.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Someone else will pick it up. We don't need a second season from them.
We technically don't.
But if they're willing to generate a second season for us, please, I will absolutely watch it.
I feel like I learned a lot from Lovecraft, to be honest. I feel more comfortable now saying Black Americans and African Americans both simultaneously, separately. And that was one thing that I had a really rough time when we were covering it. I had to I talked to a lot of friends about it. And even the phrase person of color, I struggle with that too. Because I grew up as a person of color. So that was the comfort phrase for me. So Lovecraft for me, it was high in empathy, negative effect of feeling helpless, because I did feel very helpless, but it allowed me to confront a lot of things.
Yes.
And I think that type of horror we need.
Yes. I think also it brought to the table a lot more insight into why racism is what it is.
Yeah.
And why reverse racism doesn't exist, and why there's all the historical aspects of it, especially since they didn't explain any of the historical stuff like we did, like the poetry and the songs and things like that. That's something people need.
Yeah.
Everything, it needs to be normalized.
Yeah.
And if you're using horror to normalize it, then great.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I think problem watching is one that is relatively new to me, which is not to this study because the study was on 1995, but totally love it.
Well, you know, our 31 Days of Horror, there's the Ballad of Black Tom and A Song for Quiet. They have very similar early issues in the books about stuff that you saw in Lovecraft Country, and I really enjoy them. Ballad of Black Tom is probably one of my favorites of the ones that we're reading for 31 Days. I'm guessing I'm really gonna like Song for Quiet.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of that talking about the thing that's terrible without actually, well, we'll talk about it when we do 31 Days of Horror, because Cassandra Caw did something that I really appreciated in A Song for Quiet in particular. But yeah, I really like problem watching. I think I like problem watching because I'm so susceptible to unraveling to relevance horror. And so watching problem watching helps me keep a more level head.
Yeah.
You know? That I'm more like to see the solution play out alongside the problem helps keep me from feeling so unhinged when those problems occur in real life.
Because when Lovecraft came out, there was so much happening in the world, and I didn't watch it when it came out. I watched it, I think, because it came out, I think, in October. I didn't watch it until, I think I started
January.
it, because I started it after you. I think you started watching it, and I started right after you. I really appreciated it for what it was, and I love Jordan Peele's stuff.
Well, and he's kind of created a much broader genre for problem watching.
Yeah, I really like it, because now that I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this type was, like, developed in 95, like, it makes me want to go back and what other ones were there in the 90s, and what was there that they created the separate category for it. But I couldn't get a hold of any of these journals.
That's a bummer. I wonder if they're just too old. That means that they're probably archived somewhere in a university.
I think so, because when I was looking for the Journal of Media Psychology, I found it just on a generic Google search, and it was on a university website, and I just couldn't get access.
Yeah, they strip and bind those journals after they have so many of them, and they bind them and put them in their archives.
Yeah.
Because I used to do that for MIT.
I wanted to do a WorldCat search, but I didn't have the time. Which, this is library talk, y'all.
Yeah. If you haven't picked up on it yet, we both work at libraries.
Yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts on horror movie Allure and types of horror watching?
Not really. I think that part of the problem watching for me has to do with the psychology of myself. I talk a lot of mess about people who fall into conspiracy theories, but I think part of that is because I myself am susceptible to questioning reality over every little turn. Just, y'all, I have such bad driving anxiety because if a bridge that I have to go over for the first time is too high in an arc and all I can see beyond it is sky, my brain thinks there's nothing past it. And so I try to swerve off the bridge because I think that I'll fall off of it anyway.
Yeah.
And so like it's a big struggle to keep myself on a bridge so I can see that there is reality after the arc. It's insane. I don't know where all of that comes from. And it's fairly recent. You know, after losing my mom, my general anxiety spiked.
Right.
Therapy's important, y'all.
It really is. It's super important.
But yeah, I think that that's why I really like problem watching. I really like the tension and relevance stuff because it helps me cope with my own issues.
And I just want to escape them.
Yeah, you just want to
Which is not
them.
Healthy. It's definitely not healthy.
It is, because like you were saying, the thing that you read earlier.
Yeah.
About during the 45 presidential.
Yeah.
I was going to say occupation.
Oh, yes. So in pre-production, when I was doing some of this research, I was telling Sadina that when Trump was elected president, there was a spike in horror movie watching because there were people that used horror movies to escape the reality of what was going on in America, which is true. There was a lot that was going on. For me as an immigrant, having to think about taking my birth certificate, my U.S. citizenship card, and putting it in my car in the event that I would get stopped, that's horrific. Yeah. And I've lived in this country for 30-something years. Yeah. People can say what they want, but there was a lot of rightly placed fear in this country. So to turn to horror to escape what was happening in real life made a lot of sense.
Yeah, because the horror gave people this option of seeing a reality that clearly that could never happen. But we said that about other things, and then they happen, and you're like, oh no, the worst can happen.
Yeah.
And so you go look for even more worse.
Yeah, to escape.
To escape, exactly.
Because at least it's not that bad.
Right. I'm trying to think if I think during those 4 years, a lot of my media consumption actually dropped.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading as much.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't watching as much media because I think that escapism is not as prevalent the way I consume media. So those things just kind of reminded me that yes, terrible things are actually happening.
Yeah.
There's no escape.
There's no escape.
Because I'm super dramatic, apparently. Oh my god, I'm so dramatic.
I watched a lot of 90s sitcoms during that.
Ooh, you know what I watched during that time? Rick and Morty.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot. In fact, I think I watched Rick and Morty in cycles.
Yeah.
I would watch all of the seasons and then start over and watch all of the seasons again because of the absurdity of it all.
So that's part 1 of the psychology of horror. And we'll return with the 8 theories, which is fun.
Yes.
See y'all later.
Bye, guys. If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast.
Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryonTheLeft.com.